Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a really unique stack of documents today.
Yeah, this one's different.
Usually we're looking at history or tech or, the latest science. Today we're looking at a linguistic high-wire act.
That's a good way to put it.
And frankly, the more I read about this, the more I felt like I was watching someone try to defuse a bomb while solving a Rubik's Cube.
That is probably the best way to describe it. It's a massive undertaking.
We're looking at a specific moment in 1945 where two massive ancient civilizations just collided in the mind of one man. We're talking about the translation of the Holy Qur'an, a text rooted in, the deserts of Arabia, Semitic language, strict monotheism into Sanskrit, the lush liturgical language of Hinduism and Vedic philosophy.
And just to set the stakes here, this is not like translating French into English.
Yeah.
You aren't just swapping grammar. You are trying to bridge two completely different operating systems for reality. You've got the one God of the desert meeting, the pantheon of the subcontinent.
Right. And our guide for this is a fascinating paper by Cemil Kutlutürk titled The Translation of the Holy Qur'an into Sanskrit. We're going to focus specifically on one translator, a man named Gunderao Harkare, and his translation of just the opening chapter, the Sūrat al-Fātiḥa.
Gunderao's the key here. He's our expert witness, so to speak.
So the mission for this deep dive is to understand how you explain strict, absolute monotheism.
Yeah.
Using a vocabulary built for a pantheistic or, a polytheistic worldview.
Yeah.
How do you rewrite the DNA of a religion using the words of another without, breaking both?
Precisely. It is a masterclass in cultural mediation. It forces us to ask, are these religions as different as we think, or is it, at some level, just a language barrier?
Okay, so let's start with the context, because the where and who here matter just as much as the what. We're in the Hyderabad Nizamate.
Right, pre-independence India. And this is crucial background. The Hyderabad Nizamate was a princely state, effectively its own country within British India.
Okay.
And it had this very specific dynamic. A Muslim ruler, the Nizam, governing a population that was overwhelmingly Hindu.
Which, historically speaking, sounds like a recipe for tension.
It certainly could be, and often was. But it also created this weirdly fertile ground for intellectual exchange. The Nizam wanted his administration to work, and he wanted the culture of the ruling class to be understood by the populace.
So into this mix steps Gunderao Harkare, and on paper, this guy seems like a walking contradiction.
He really does. Born in 1887. He's a Brahmin, so he's from the priestly caste in Hinduism, the guardians of the Vedas.
Right.
But he isn't sitting in a temple somewhere. He's a munsif, a civil judge working for the Muslim king.
Wow. So he's a Hindu Brahmin interpreting law for a Muslim administration.
Now get this. He wasn't just some bureaucrat. He was a bona fide polymath. The sources list his languages. Sanskrit, Telugu, Marathi, English, Persian, and Arabic.
And he held the title Vachaspati, right?
Yeah.
Which is Master of Eloquence.
And Vidyabhushana, adorned with knowledge. This is someone deeply embedded in the Hindu intellectual tradition, deeply respected. Yet he decides to take on the Quran.
Now, the source notes that Muslims had been in India since the 9th century. Surely there were translations before 1945.
Oh, there were. But they were vernacular translations. You had translations into Persian, Urdu, Sindhi.
Day-to-day languages?
Exactly. In the 18th century, the scholar Shah Waliullah really pushed for people to understand the text in their local language. But Sanskrit was kind of the final frontier.
Why? Was it just too difficult?
It wasn't about difficulty. It was about sanctity. Sanskrit was sort of the VIP section of languages. It was the exclusive domain of the Hindu clergy, reserved for the Vedas and the Upanishads. Using Sanskrit for a mleccha, or a foreign text, was considered taboo by Orthodox pundits for a very long time.
So Gunderao isn't just translating, he's almost trespassing in a way, or breaking a seal.
Or opening a gate. By the mid-20th century, there was this movement among the intelligentsia to find common ground. His translation was for the Sanskrit literate elite, the Brahmins, the scholars.
Right.
He wanted to show them, in their own sacred language, what Islam actually was. He wanted to bypass the hearsay and go straight to the source, but in a format they respected.
Okay, so let's get into the text itself. This is where it gets nerdy and really fun. He starts, obviously, with the Bismillah, in the name of Allah.
Yeah.
And right out of the gate, he hits a wall. How do you translate Allah?
It's the ultimate problem. If you use a word like Ishvara or Bhagavan, you trigger these immediate associations with Hindu deities.
Sure.
You say Ishvara, and a Hindu reader might picture Shiva. You say Bhagavan, They might think of Krishna or Vishnu beings with forms and myths and families and avatars.
Which completely defeats the whole purpose of the Qur'an's strict formless monotheism. You can't have the reader picturing a blue-skinned god when you're trying to describe the unseen.
Exactly. So Gunderao bypasses all the popular gods and goes straight to the philosophical core. He chooses the word Paramatman.
Paramatman. Let's break that down.
Okay, so para means supreme or ultimate.
Okay.
And Atman translates to self, spirit, or soul. So you get the supreme self or the supreme spirit.
That feels very abstract.
And that's the point. In Vedantic philosophy, Paramatman is the formless, absolute reality. It's the ground of all being. It doesn't have a face. It doesn't have a statue. It encompasses everything.
So by choosing that word, he's stripping away all the anthropomorphic baggage.
He is aligning the Islamic definition of God uncreated, formless, absolute, with the highest abstract concept in Hinduism. He's saying, look, the Allah of the Qur'an is the same reality as the Paramatman of the Upanishads.
That is a massive theological bridge to build with just one word. It's like he's saying, we aren't talking about your gods versus my God.
We are talking about the source.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then he immediately runs into the next phrase, Rab al-Alamin, Lord of the worlds. And here, the source says he does something that made me do a double take. He translates worlds using the concept of devas.
He does.
But wait a minute, I thought deva meant God, like a deity. If he just got rid of the gods to use Paramatman, why is he bringing devas back in?
In common parlance, yes, deva means God. But Gunderao is playing 4D chess here.
Okay.
He translates Rab al-Alamin as the ruler of the world of humans, animals, and devas. But he clarifies in his commentary that he is not talking about independent gods.
So what are they then?
He goes back to the etymological root of deva, which is devan meaning to shine or to be luminous. He argues that in this context, devas refers to luminous beings.
Luminous beings? That sounds a lot like angels.
Exactly. He maps the Islamic concept of angels, beings of light who serve God onto the Sanskrit term deva. He effectively demotes the devas from gods to servants of the Paramatman.
That is incredibly bold. He's redefining his own religious vocabulary to fit the text. He's telling his readers, you know those beings you worship. In this system, they're the staff, not the boss.
It is. He's telling his Hindu readers, in this worldview, the hierarchy is different. The devas exist, but they are created beings. It preserves the Islamic hierarchy. God is supreme, everything else is a creature, while using words that feel familiar.
Okay, moving on. We have the famous attributes, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, usually translated as the most gracious, the most merciful. Now, I'll be honest, I've always found these hard to distinguish in English. They just sound like synonyms, two ways of saying nice.
They often do in English,
Yes.
yeah. But in Islamic theology, there's a very specific nuance. Rahman is usually understood as general mercy. It exists for everyone. It's the mercy of existence itself.
Okay.
Rahim is specific mercy, often interpreted as mercy for the believers or mercy that responds to an action.
So how does Gunderao capture that distinction? Because if English struggles with it, surely Sanskrit has a million words for mercy.
He brings in a heavy hitter from Hindu philosophy, the concept of dharma.
Dharma. Okay, that's a huge word. Duty, cosmic law, righteousness, the right way of living.
All of the above. It's the moral fabric of the universe. Now, for Ar-Rahman, he uses the phrase apara karuna paravara.
Apara karuna paravara. I'm not going to try saying that 5 times fast. What does it mean?
It translates to the ocean of boundless compassion. Para implies an ocean, a shoreless expanse. He explains in his commentary that this mercy is like the ocean or the rain. It falls on everyone, regardless of their dharma.
Regardless of their duty, regardless of whether they're good.
Right. It doesn't matter if you're a king, a thief, a believer, or an atheist. The sun shines on you. The rain falls on you. You get to breathe the air. That is Rahman. It is independent of your actions. It's unconditional.
And Rahim.
For Rahim, he uses karunavat, which means possessing mercy. But here's the kicker. He distinguishes it by saying, this mercy interacts with dharma. It's the mercy that responds to those who follow the path of righteousness.
Ah, I see. So Rahman is the operating system of the universe. It just runs, no login required.
That's a great way to put it.
And Rahim is the user interface. It responds to your input.
It does. And by anchoring it in dharma, he makes it instantly clickable for a Hindu scholar. They understand that some things are cosmic constants and some things are karmic results. He's using their own ethical framework to explain Islamic theology.
Speaking of karma, we have to talk about the timeline, because this seems like the place where the two worldviews would just fundamentally crash and burn.
The collision of time, yes. This is probably the hardest part.
Because Hinduism is generally cyclical, right?
Yeah.
You have kalpa creation, destruction, rebirth. It's a wheel. You die, you come back.
Right.
And Islam is linear. Creation, history, judgment day, the end.
You can't really merge those. You can't have a little bit of reincarnation in Islamic theology. You have to pick a lane.
So what does Gunderao do with the phrase master of the day of judgment? Does he try to fudge it?
No, he completely respects the source text. He steps out of the cyclical worldview entirely for this verse. He translates day of judgment as punaruthana divasa.
Punaruthana divasa.
It literally means the day of rising again, resurrection. And in his notes, he explicitly describes a cosmic dissolution, a singularity where the universe ends. He's very clear. This happens once.
But here's where the deep dive aspect really kicks in. He uses a specific word to describe God on that day.
Yes. Fātiḥa.
The giver of fruits.
The giver of fruits.
Which sounds kind of pleasant, like a guy handing out mangoes. But I suspect it means something else.
It does. In Sanskrit philosophy, phala, fruit, is the technical term for the result of an action. It's the output of karma. If you plant a seed, which is an action, it bears fruit.
So God is the one who hands out the karmic results at the end.
Exactly. He's taking the mechanics of Hindu ethics, cause and effect, karma and phala, and installing them into the Islamic linear timeline. He's saying, on that final day of dissolution, the Paramatman becomes the Fātiḥa.
That is brilliant. He's using the logic of karma to explain the mechanism of Judgment Day.
It removes the arbitrariness. For a Hindu reader, judgment might sound like a king just deciding who he likes, but giving the fruit, that implies justice. You get exactly what you grew.
I love that image. It bridges the gap between judgment and consequence. It makes the concept of a final judgment feel less like a courtroom and more like a harvest.
It appeals to the Hindu sense of cosmic justice perfectly, even though the timeline itself is completely different.
So we've got the Supreme Self, the luminous beings, the ocean of mercy, and the giver of fruits. Now we get to the people. The Sūrat talks about the straight path, Sūrat al-Mustaqim,
which he translates as Supantha, the good path or beautiful path.
And it describes the people on that path as those upon whom you bestowed favors.
And this is where the emotional texture changes. He translates that phrase, those upon whom you bestowed favors, as Priya.
Meaning?
Beloveds.
That's surprisingly intimate. The path of the beloveds.
It connects directly to the bhakti tradition in Hinduism. You have to remember, Hinduism isn't just dry philosophy. You have the whole bhakti movement, the path of loving devotion. It's personal. It's emotional. By using Priya, Gunderao is suggesting that the favor of the Qur'an isn't just guidance or wealth. The favor is being loved by God.
It reframes the whole relationship. It's not just master and servant, it's lover and beloved.
He calls them exclusive devotees of the Supreme. It just adds this layer of warmth that a dry, literal translation might miss.
But now, okay, hold on to your hats. We have to go to the dark side, the end of the surah, the path of those who earned wrath and those who went astray.
Yes, and this is historically the most difficult part of the text to translate diplomatically. Traditional Islamic exegesis often identifies those who earned wrath as the Jews and those who went astray as the Christians.
Right. Does Gunderao keep that interpretation? Or does he sort of scrub it to be polite?
He actually keeps it. He references it in his notes, Yahudi and Nasara. But, and this is the biggest aha moment of the entire paper for me, he explains why using formal Indian logic.
Indian logic? You mean like a specific school of philosophy?
Yes, specifically the Nyaya school. Nyaya deals with epistemology, how we know what we know and how we make errors. Gunderao uses this toolkit to categorize the wrath and the astray.
Okay, walk me through this. How does Indian logic explain wrath?
Gunderao defines the state of wrath using the term atyantapava.
Atyantapava sounds heavy.
It means absolute non-existence. In Nyaya logic, it refers to something that is fundamentally absent. So Gunderao argues that this group implies an ontological absence of knowledge regarding the true path.
So it's not just that they're bad people, it's that the connection to the truth is broken or blocked.
Gone. He suggests that due to historical obstinacy or baggage, the capacity to receive the truth has faced a total blockage. It's an absolute absence. The signal isn't getting through at all.
And the astray, the Christian.
For them, he uses a different logical category. He describes a state where the capacity for knowledge exists, but it's deviated. They are engaging with non-truth.
So the receiver works, but it's tuned to the wrong station.
Essentially. He argues this is a willful deviation or a misunderstanding rather than the absolute non-existence of the first group.
That is wildly sophisticated. He's taking theological condemnation and turning it into an epistemological diagnosis.
He's categorizing error. He's saying, here is a type 1 error, absence, and here's a type 2 error, deviation. It allows a Hindu logician to look at these groups and say, I understand the structural difference between them, rather than just seeing them as bad guys.
It really drives home the mission we talked about at the top. He isn't trying to convert the reader to Islam, is he?
No, and that is so important. The source emphasizes that Gunderao and other translators like Dr. Satyendra Verma, who came later, treated the Qur'an with deep respect, but also with impartiality. They weren't engaging in polemics. They were looking for the one behind the many.
Finding the signal in the noise.
Exactly. Dr. Verma, for instance, would quote the Vedas side by side with the Qur'an in his commentaries. Not to say the Vedas are better or the Qur'an is better, but to say, look, they are talking about the same ultimate reality.
It challenges the way we think about religious boundaries. We usually see them as walls. Gunderao saw them as, what, different dialects?
Different dialects of the same spiritual language. He showed that you can express strict Islamic monotheism using the vocabulary of the Vedas without breaking either system. He proved the concepts are translatable, even if the histories are different.
It brings me back to that first word he chose, Paramatman.
The Supreme Self.
It makes you wonder about the sensory experience of religion. If you grew up praying to Paramatman, does that change the flavor of the divinity compared to praying to Allah or God?
I think it has to. Words are containers for history and emotion. Paramatman sort of smells like sandalwood and sounds like temple bells. Allah carries the stark, beautiful silence of the desert and the call to prayer.
So when you wrap the Qur'anic concept in the Sanskrit word,
you create a fusion flavor, a new way to taste the divine. And maybe that's the ultimate value of translation. It forces you to see your own beliefs through a stranger's eyes. Gunderao Harkare gave us a glimpse of what monotheism looks like when it wears the robes of the Vedas.
A beautiful thought to end on. From the Hyderabad Nizamate to the Supreme Self, this has been quite a journey.
It certainly has.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one. Stay curious.